Welcome to Bring the World Home. This is a production of the Returned Peace Corps Volunteers of Hawaii. My name is Linda Chalk, and I served as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Northern Mariana Islands of Micronesia from 1966 to 1968. In our program, we bring you the experiences of a Peace Corps volunteer as they served in one of the 132 countries that Peace Corps serves. With us tonight is Carrie Monahan, who is a Peace Corps volunteer currently serving in Morocco with her husband Andrew, who unfortunately could not be with us. He is in training right now. But I'd like to welcome Carrie.
Thank you.
To our show.
Thank you.
And how did you get interested in the Peace Corps?
Well, I've always loved to travel, and I've always loved to study languages. I studied abroad during college in France, and then I took an economics of developing countries class in college, and I started watching some videos about developing nations, and I decided that's what I want to do. So I actually worked for 4 years after college, and at that point Andrew and I started talking about doing the Peace Corps together, and we got engaged, and right after we got engaged we applied and were accepted. So we came to Morocco in September of 2004.
2004. So you've been here in Morocco. Did you get your training in country?
Yes, we received training starting in September. We went to separate training sites because we serve in different sectors. So my training site was in Kemiset, which is near Rabat, which is the capital of Morocco. During that time, all of us together in the youth development sector would get together for about 10 days at a time, and then we went to separate small training groups in small villages where we lived with a host family and did intensive language training, and we learned how to do our job here, which is teach English at the youth center and do youth development work.
I see. Okay. So while you were in training, they taught you the language, which is?
Yes, the language is Moroccan Arabic, Darija. Also, there are volunteers who learn Berber, Tashelhait, and Tamazight. So all of my sector, youth development, learns Arabic. So we received language training every day for 4 hours and had examinations at the end of the training.
This is mainly oral training or written?
Yes, we received some written training, but written Arabic is a different form of Arabic. It's classical Arabic, so it's not the same as spoken. So we received training in the basic letters of Arabic, but mainly we focused on oral communication, what we really needed to know to communicate with people here.
And I understand that you speak Arabic really quite well.
Thank you very much. I don't know about that.
Well, having met the deputy, not the mayor, but the deputy and the chief of police, he said, you really
You did.
speak very well.
Thank you.
Did you also learn a bit about the culture of Morocco?
We did learn a lot about the culture. Morocco is a really diverse culture, but it's an Islamic and Arab culture, so there are a lot of norms that we have to follow here, like conservative dress, and also just different functions of the culture, like what to do when you go to a wedding. People think very differently here than they do in the United States, so it was good to get a lot of training in how to work with people, how to communicate, how they're thinking.
Tell me a little bit about the work that you were assigned to do here. I understand that you have a primary task and you may have some secondary tasks.
Yes, my primary tasks are English teaching and youth development. For English teaching, we teach at a local youth center. I teach about 6 or 7 hours a week. The youth center is an after-school activity for students because they don't have extracurricular activities in their high schools. So they come there to play sports or to play games, to have clubs and meetings. So I would teach from 6:30 to 7:30 every day. Mostly high school students, but I get some junior high students and some younger kids as well. Also for youth development, every volunteer focuses on his or her specialty. Some focus on theater, some focus on sports. I've done a lot of HIV/AIDS education with my students. Also girls basketball team and some women's leadership. Like we did a girls leadership camp this summer. Girls leading our world. So those have been my primary duties here.
And we're going to meet some of your students.
Yes. My students are really great here, and they're what makes my work possible. So these are some students from Boulman, Morocco, and they come to the Dar Shabab, which is the local youth center, and I'm their teacher, and we've done lots of activities together. So I'll just go around the room. This is Khadija, Sufyan, Ito, Mustafa, Abdelmalik, Aziz, and Kareem. And they're all in high school. Some of them are in like a freshman in high school, and Mustafa just graduated. He got his baccalaureate, so he's going to university next year. I do English classes during the year. So the English lessons range from beginner to advanced. And we also recently, last year, started a AIDS awareness club. So all these students are members of the AIDS club. We started last summer, and we did an AIDS educational outreach project at a local festival. And what we did was pass out brochures and AIDS ribbons. There's not very much AIDS awareness at all here, but it's a high risk factor. And we started with that. We also did some theater outreach. We started a girls basketball team. We play chess. We play ultimate frisbee. We do lots of stuff.
Do you get to see many of the Peace Corps volunteers that you trained with when you first came into the country?
Mm-hmm. It depends on which region that you live in, but in my region there are a lot of Peace Corps volunteers. Mm-hmm. I think we have, we did 2 large regional projects this past year. Mm-hmm. One was a large regional AIDS education project, and we went to 7 different youth centers and collaborated with the Moroccan AIDS NGO. So about 8 of us volunteers were involved in that. So with that we created different AIDS clubs, we showed films about AIDS and had lots of question and answer sessions. Mm-hmm. Also our Girls Leadership Camp was a collaborative effort with 15 different volunteers in the region. Mm-hmm. So each volunteer worked with the Moroccan counterparts on the camp, and each volunteer chose 5 girls to go to the camp. We're going to talk about what they learned at their Girls Leadership Camp. In Azru this summer there were 53 girls, and it was called Camp Glow, Girls Leading Our Worlds. We had 10 Peace Corps volunteers and 10 Moroccan female professionals as facilitators, and girls from all over this region went. So tell us what you learned. She said thanks to Carrie for sending us to the camp. She said we learned a lot at the camp. They made a lot of friends from around Morocco. The curriculum of the camp was leadership, such as self-esteem, goal setting, career planning, aggressive and passive behavior. They're hoping that they can go to the camp again in the future. I've also taught at some spring and summer language camps. Those are English language camps with Peace Corps volunteers in the youth development sector. There we do English classes, we do clubs, other activities like dancing, talent shows, trips to the beach. I was the coordinator of one of our camps in Fez. We also do a lot of cultural exchange at those camps because we reach a different population. They're mostly kids from the large cities, and a lot of them have never met an American before. And some of them come in with a very negative impression of Americans, but at the end of the camp they say, we love Americans now, we know that you love Morocco, you love Muslims, and there's a lot of really good cultural exchange that comes out of the experiences. Okay, so next is Dries, and he's a really good student of mine. He's going to be going to university in Fez next year, so he'll talk.
Carrie also is my teacher in English. She gave us a lot of information about English, and we last year went to an English language summer camp, and we study a lot and we learn a lot of things that we have never seen in Morocco. And also I want to thank a lot the volunteers of USA, of Peace Corps, and thank you also. That's all.
Have there been Peace Corps volunteers in Morocco for a number of years?
Yes, Morocco was one of the first Peace Corps countries, and I believe they started in 1963 in Morocco. So there's been a Peace Corps presence for over 40 years here, and wherever we go in Morocco, the minute they hear us speak Arabic, then they know we're a Peace Corps volunteer. Anywhere I go, people say, you're Peace Corps. So there's definitely a strong presence here.
So your host family has hosted actually several volunteer and couples.
Each Peace Corps volunteer lives with the host family during training and also for 2 months once you get to your site in order to acclimate to the community and just build relationships. So we lived with the host family for 2 months when we got here. Their name is Hajij, and there are 2 parents. The mother unfortunately passed away, but there are 4 grown sisters living in the house, and then a sister nearby and some other family members. They cooked all our meals and helped us get acclimated, and once we located a house, they helped us to buy our furniture and help us move in. So we regularly still visit them 2 or
Great.
3 times a week.
Uh-huh.
So they're really like our family.
And they serve you Moroccan food, such as?
Some Moroccan food is couscous. It's usually a really big pile of couscous with vegetables and chicken in the middle. There's tagine, which is kind of like a stew. There can be chicken or lamb or just vegetables with a sauce, and you eat that with your hands with bread. So you tear a piece of bread and dip it into the sauce and eat it. They also eat like lentils, beans, a lot of fruit. There's a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables here. And then they have some specialty pastries, like things that are like crepes or like pancakes, things like that. The food's really good here.
Do they use a lot of spices?
Yeah, there's a lot of spices available. They're really cheap. They use a lot of paprika, saffron, ginger, turmeric, a lot of those spices, a lot of fresh herbs. Everything is completely fresh.
You're in a rather remote village, Bouman. Do you have whatever you need here, or do you have to go to the nearby city?
We have almost everything that we need here. We got most of our house supplies here. There are local markets in the region where we bought like our couches and our bed, things like that. All the food that we need, except for things that we want, like peanut butter or special foods, we're able to find in Bouman or in Sefru, which is nearby. And we also now have internet access in our town. They brought DSL, so there are 10 cyber cafes in a small town of 5,000.
Since you moved here?
In the past year. So Bouman is very well connected to the world now.
So who uses the cyber cafes?
Mostly youth use the cyber cafes, people like in their teens and 20s, maybe 30s. And a large percentage of them are chatting online or doing instant messaging with people from around the world. And a lot of them are looking for relationships abroad too. So a lot of people stay up all night chatting with girls from all over the world.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Are there any extracurricular activities that you do on your own?
I suppose I read a lot, and I exercise. I go running, do yoga, that sort of thing. We go hiking quite a bit, and we have bicycles that Peace Corps gives us, so we sometimes bike around here too. And then we travel to the larger cities to see our friends, or just to see a movie maybe, or get some food that we don't have available in Bouman.
You do biking around here. It's very mountainous.
Yeah, we don't bike too much because it's really
part
difficult.
of the Atlas chain, right?
Yeah, we're up about a mile high, I think, so
Wow.
it's kind of difficult to bicycle.
Just getting here was, just up and down.
Yeah, pretty steep.
The terrain was quite varied.
Yeah. When you start in Sefru and near Azru, there's a lot. It's very green, and when you come towards here, it's a very Arab kind of scrubby climate. So it's very dry up here.
What do you do here in Bouman in the evenings?
In the evenings are pretty quiet. People tend to stay in their house, so we read, or we have a computer, so we watch DVDs, or we just hang out. It's pretty quiet. And we also go to families' houses and hang out with them and watch TV and have dinner with people, go for lunch or for tea.
I noticed almost everywhere we went, there's a number of satellite dishes.
Yes, yeah. Almost everyone has a satellite in Morocco. Even the poorest shack outside of Casablanca, they have satellite. It's the first thing they buy. So
And that connects to?
To a lot of Arab countries. They watch a lot of TV from Egypt and from Saudi Arabia, Iraq, but also there are Western channels. There are quite a few American channels, British channels, French, a lot of French television. There's BBC, and then there's also some movie channels. They show a lot of American movies, and a lot of them have subtitles, and they tell me that they watch a lot of American TV to try to understand. And they really enjoy American movies a lot.
I noticed that there's quite a bit of agriculture.
Yes. In Bouman, there's a little bit of agriculture. They grow like potatoes and corn and just some basic vegetables for their families. Nearby, there's a lot of olive groves in our region, and they produce a lot of olive oil, which they sell here and abroad.
Oh, they export.
Yeah, they export it. And this year, Spain had a drought with olive trees, so they came in and brought a lot of olive oil from Morocco. And different regions of Morocco grow different produce. In the south, they grow a lot of citrus. There's a lot of fresh fruits and vegetables here. There's a special oil in the south of Morocco called argan oil, and Morocco is the only place in the world that has it. It's from a special nut, and goats eat the nuts, and they harvest the nuts and they press them. It's a very long process, but it's really delicious.
What do they use the argan oil for?
They eat the argan oil. You can eat it with bread or in cooking, like in couscous, or it's really good in a salad. Also, they make special beauty products out of argan. My friend's host family prepares it, so I buy it for about $10, but around the world it's really, really expensive. And if you buy it in certain markets, it's expensive. It's very rare.
I noticed coming to Bouman, we passed several onion fields. It was unusual to see how they stored the onions under beds of hay.
Yeah.
And then they had rock walls.
Yes, they have a lot of onions here. Onions are used in every Moroccan dish. So my host family has a huge storage of onions in their barn. They grow onions for themselves.
I
so
see. So
they're very cheap.
Do they own the land on which they grow the crops?
Yeah, my host family owns a small bit of land outside of their house, and they also sometimes go work on farms for, like my host sister will go out during harvest time and get paid to harvest in different places around the country, and a lot of people earn money from seasonal labor like that.
What other industry does Morocco have here?
Morocco has a lot of phosphates in the south, so certain towns are very heavy in the phosphate industry. They have a lot of handicraft products that they export, and there's actually an artisan cooperative nearby that has a lot of business with France and with Spain and with Italy. Yeah, so I think they work through the United Nations. And there's also some agriculture. They export a lot of fruit and vegetables, I believe.
I also read that Morocco is starting up in the telecommunications business. They're making components that are used in manufacturing, like cell phones and wires and connectors and things like that.
Yeah, despite being in a lot of rural areas, almost like when we were in a camel trip in the middle of the Sahara, our guide whipped out a cell phone in the middle of the desert. So everyone is completely connected. Everyone has a cell phone and everyone has satellite TV. So they're definitely not too backwards.
We didn't get to meet your husband, but Andrew also has work here in Morocco, which is a little bit different from yours.
Yes, he's in the small business development sector, and that sector is very different from mine. They work with local handicraft artisans to help improve their business practices. So perhaps women, the carpets or the rugs that they make don't really cater to tourist tastes. So maybe they might help them work with different colors, they might help them export, they might help them with accounting, just any sort of practice. They do an assessment of what those women need or those men, and then they help develop their business.
So what kinds of things do they do?
Some of them make carpets, some make work with silver. It really varies. Some people work with leather and shoes. There's a group near here who makes buttons for the jalabas, which is a traditional Moroccan dress. With a hood. Right. So they have formed a cooperative to make the buttons for those jalabas, and they've been very successful with that.
Now, is that only in Bulmain?
No, it kind of depends by region. Bulmain's specialty is more carpets. It's called a handbell carpet, and it's a specific design. And a lot of the artisans get together. One thing volunteers do is organize craft fairs. One of their main jobs is to help the artisans network with each other so that they can form support systems and form relationships so that they can all better their business practices. Bulmain is a Berber town, so people speak both Arabic and Berber. Berber is the indigenous group of people here in Morocco, which were here before the Arabs. So are
they mainly inhabiting the Atlas Mountains, the mountainous areas?
There's a lot of people in the mountainous areas and also in the south. There are different Berber groups, and there are also a lot of Berber people just in the cities as well. But people are very proud of their Berber heritage. So during July in Bulmain, they hold a local Berber Tamizer cultural festival, and they do a lot of traditional dances and traditional songs and poetry. And during that time, a lot of the artisans at this festival that Andrew helped organize, they brought their products and sold them. And the governor came, and it was very successful. A lot of artisans made a lot of money, and they made a lot of contacts with each other.
I guess they also create their own wool because they have a lot of herds of sheep.
There's a long process for the wool. They shear the sheep, and I've seen my host sisters do that. Then they bring all the wool onto a blanket and pick out all the dirt and everything in it. And then they have to wash the wool, and they spin the wool, and then they dye the wool themselves generally. Sometimes they use natural dyes, and sometimes they use chemical dyes. And then they hang it to dry, and then they use a loom to produce the carpet. It's a very long process. The artisans here in Bulmain, they create sweaters in the winter because it's very cold in the winter. So they have looms to make sweaters, and people come in and order them, and they have all different colors and all different styles for men and women and children. It's especially popular around the Muslim holiday of L'Eid, which is when Abraham was going to slaughter
Yes.
son, Isaac, and they slaughter a sheep in memory of that.
I see.
So that's a very big holiday in Morocco in January, and most people buy new clothes before that time, so a lot of orders come in then.
What other holidays do you celebrate here?
One of them is the end of Ramadan, called Eid al-Fitr.
Oh, yes.
Ramadan is a very, very big event here.
That's coming up?
Yeah, it starts September 24th this year, and during Ramadan people fast from sunrise to sundown, and they don't drink any water, they can't smoke, and they don't eat. So when they break the fast, then families gather together, they drink a soup that's called harira, which is like a tomato-based soup, and they eat eggs and dates. They always break the fast with a date. They might eat dried figs, and there's a special cookie called shibakia, which is fried and covered in honey. And they also eat bread and drink tea. So that's their fast.
Only in the evening?
Yeah. So when the sun sets, they eat that meal. Some families eat again around 10 or 11 o'clock, and then some wake up at 3 in the morning to have a large meal before the day starts. So that the end of Ramadan is Eid al-Fitr, and everyone visits different houses of their friends and family and eats lots and lots of cookies and drinks a lot of sugary tea.
Is that when they can eat meat or
At that time,
vegetables,
the fast is over and they can eat whatever they want.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
They must have special ceremonies where the two families exchange gifts or...
Prior to the wedding, usually the groom and his family go to the bride's house and they bring sort of a big conglomeration of presents. Like they might bring a sheep or two, they might bring household items. They usually bring a big wagon full of gifts to the wife's family. And they do special henna ceremonies and they open gifts. Henna is like a plant, and they grind it up and they mix it with water and often lemon juice and sugar, and they decorate their hands with it. Sometimes women cover their whole palms of their hands in henna or just their entire hands. Also their fingernails, I still have some in my hands. Their fingernails are orange.
Okay.
And that's henna.
They paint them with
henna. So they put it on and then they take it off later and it stays orange, it doesn't come off.
How long does it stay on?
On hands, about 1 to 3 weeks, depending on how long you leave it. If you leave it on overnight, it stays a long time. And on the fingernails until your fingernails grow up.
Oh,
and same with your hair. During the wedding, the men and the women are often segregated, and they do their celebrations separately until later in the evening when they all get together and dance together. Usually, at a wedding, dinner isn't served until 11 o'clock at night or midnight.
Oh, okay.
And
So
it's usually
have a snack before you go.
So usually the dish, the first dish is a chicken tagine with olives and preserved lemons, and then later either comes a lamb tagine with prunes or couscous. So at most weddings they serve the same foods. If it's a little bit wealthier wedding, they might serve something called pastilla, which is like a flaky pastry with a chicken and a sweet chicken mix inside, topped with powdered sugar and cinnamon. Yeah, so wealthier families might have more options for the food. But in a wedding here, it goes all night long, so they don't go to sleep until 6 or 7 in the morning. And often the bride and groom are not with the guests for most of the night. They might stay in a separate room and then come out at 3 or 4 in the morning. And my tutor told me that most men spend about 5,000 dirhams to get married, which is about $500, which is kind of a lot of money here. And a man to get married here generally has to have a job. So there's a lot of unemployment in Morocco, so a lot of men don't get married until they find a job.
I see.
But a lot of them, the minute they get a job, they're looking for a wife.
I see.
Yes.
We heard that in one of the villages in the south, I don't remember the name of it, but near Warsaw, they have an annual marriage ceremony.
Yes.
All the young couples who intend to marry are, are wed at that time.
There's a site it's called Imolshil, and it's way high up in the high Atlas Mountains, and there's a Peace Corps volunteer actually there now.
Really?
And they had an artisan festival there last year, and in that town the women are known for being very aggressive. So a lot of the American men who come, they say, "You're going to marry me" during the festival, and they try to get them to marry. Some women go and they marry someone that they've never seen before.
Really?
Yeah, they've never met them, and they just want to get married.
Is this for good or just for
It's
a
for
short
good.
time? Wow.
Yeah, but people here in Morocco, they don't really date as much before they get married. Sometimes the marriages are arranged. Otherwise, maybe they meet each other and get married very quickly because dating isn't really looked upon as something that's very appropriate.
Oh.
But it's very different in the big cities and in the country. In the big cities, men and women date more, and it's not really a taboo. In the small towns, I've been told even a girl would never tell her sister if she's dating someone. So it's always very secretive. It's considered hashuma, which means shameful. So she doesn't want to bring shame upon her family, so it's very hush-hush.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very different.
Very different from America.
Have you traveled around Morocco very much and seen other parts?
We've traveled almost all over Morocco. We went down to the Sahara and took a camel trip, just an overnight camel ride in the desert. We've been to the coast, to Essaouira, which is beautiful, and to Agadir. Marrakesh is really fun. There's a lot of things to do there, and it's really overwhelming, like crazy.
What did you do there?
In Marrakesh, there's a large square called Jemaa el-Fna, and especially at night, it really lights up. There's street performers like monkey handlers and snake charmers. A lot of Moroccans go too. It's not just tourists who go. Moroccan tourists go. And a lot of people will sit in a big circle and listen to a storyteller, or they'll see people act out a theater piece there. And there's also large food stalls, specialties. It gets really crazy at night. It's really fun.
Carrie, I want to thank you very much for sharing your experiences while you're here and serving in Morocco, and telling us about the people and culture of Morocco, and introducing us to some of your English students. That was a great experience, and they seem to be really happy about you as their teacher, saying that they were so fortunate to have a beautiful teacher here. And two of your students, very impressive, are going on to universities to study English, and they in turn want to become English teachers.
They do.
Which is wonderful.
Very proud of them.
Yes. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Okay.
Okay.
And thank you for watching Bring the World Home. We'll see you again and bring you more experiences from a Peace Corps volunteer and their services abroad.
يا نجمة الغرة إذا نتوب لله عشقي لمن يبقى إذا نتوب لله عشقي لمن يبقى إذا نتوب لله عشقي لمن يبقى الحب ما ننساه ومن يلوم يشقى إذا نتوب لله عشقي لمن يبقى